The bone saw weighs 8 ounces, surgical steel, sharp enough to cut through femur in 30 seconds, sharp enough to sever a carotid artery in 3. Sachiko Tanaka, 23 years old. Imperial Navy surgical nurse wraps her fingers around the wooden handle. The serrated edge bites into her thumb. Blood wells up warm against the February cold. She doesn't notice. 3 feet away, Sergeant James Morrison unbuttons his shirt. 1 button. 2. 3. The tent canvas snaps in the wind. Kerosene lamplight flickers across 7 Japanese women huddled on stretchers. Outside, somewhere in the Saipan darkness, Marines patrol the perimeter of a war that Japan is losing badly. Inside this medical tent, another kind of war is about to be decided. Morrison's fingers move to the 4th button. His chest emerges into the yellow light. Pale skin, goosebumps from cold. Dog tags hanging visible against his sternum. Name, unit, blood type. Every piece of identification exposed where anyone can read it. Why would a man about to commit assault make himself so easily identifiable? The thought cracks something in Sachiko's certainty. Not much, just enough to make her hand tighten on the bone saw instead of swinging. On the stretcher between them, Mieko Hayashi lies dying. 19 years old. The youngest of 47 Japanese women pulled from collapsed caves 3 days ago. Her lips have gone from pink to blue to gray. Her body shivers so violently the canvas stretcher rattles against frozen dirt. Temperature 93.2 degrees Fahrenheit. Morrison checked it 6 minutes ago. His face tightened when he read the thermometer. Not anger, fear. The professional fear of a medic who knows exactly what hypothermia does to the human body at this temperature. 40 minutes until organ failure. Maybe less. Morrison keeps his eyes fixed on the tent ceiling. Even as his hands move. Even as he's close enough that one wrong gesture, one misunderstood movement could end him. Lay your head on my chest, he says to Mieko. His voice is flat with exhaustion. 42 hours without sleep. Dark circles under his eyes like bruises. 5 words, simple English. Sachiko understands them perfectly. She learned English in Tokyo before the war, back when America was a place in textbooks, not the enemy bombing her cities and killing her people. She knows exactly what those 5 words mean, or thinks she does. Because for 6 months, every officer, every pamphlet, every whispered warning in the barracks told her the same thing. Americans are demons who use women as tools for their flesh. Americans rape and torture. Americans are animals in human skin. The tent flap opens. Cold air rushes in. Another American enters. Younger. Filipino features. He opens his mouth and perfect Japanese emerges. This is hypothermia protocol. We need permission before we proceed. Or permission. The word sounds foreign, clinical, nothing like what Sachiko expected. Private Daniel Torres, 22 years old Filipino-American translator, holds out a piece of paper. The lamplight catches Japanese characters on the left side, English on the right. He doesn't approach quickly. Telegraphs every movement. Holds the form where Sachiko can see it clearly. Her eyes scan the Japanese text. Reading. Processing. Refusing to believe. Body heat transfer protocol. Patient consent required. May refuse at any time. Alternative blanket protocol available upon request. This consent valid for 24 hours. Renewable daily. Sachiko's brain stutters. Consent from prisoners, from enemies. Permission requested before touching women who are utterly helpless. This makes no sense. Victors don't ask permission. Victors take what they want. That's what war is. That's what every war has always been. Morrison finishes unbuttoning his shirt. His chest is completely exposed now. Vulnerable. He could be killed easily in this position. 1 strike to the throat. 90 seconds of bleeding. Then dead. He still doesn't look at any of them. Eyes on the canvas ceiling, following some protocol that Sachiko's propaganda training never mentioned. Protocol requires me to look away, Morrison says quietly. Daniel translates. Direct eye contact feels threatening to vulnerable patients. The bone saw is warming in Sachiko's palm, metal teeth pressing into her flesh. 1 swing. That's all it would take. Behind her, the other women watch in frozen silence. Tomoko Sasaki, 34. The senior nurse has her arms crossed, cynical, hard-eyed, waiting for the mask to drop, waiting for the performance to end and the real horror to begin. Keiko Matsuda, 21, naive and terrified, clutches a thin blanket around her shoulders. Her eyes dart between Morrison and the tent entrance, calculating distance, weighing options. All of them bad. Mieko's breathing grows shallower. Morrison kneels beside her stretcher, 2 fingers against her neck, counting pulse. His lips move silently, 38 beats per minute, dangerously slow. He looks at Daniel, just a glance. But Sachiko sees something pass between them. Some understanding, some shared weight. Daniel pulls a second form from his jacket, hands it to Morrison, who sets it on the instrument tray beside the bone saw. Close enough that Sachiko could grab either one. Weapon or document, violence or trust. Before any body contact procedure, Daniel says in careful Japanese, we need written consent from the patient, or from someone authorized to speak for her if she cannot consent. He's looking at Sachiko now, not Morrison, the translator addressing her directly. Mieko is unconscious. She cannot consent. You are senior medical staff among the prisoners. Can you speak for her? Sachiko stares at him. At this young man with his perfect Japanese and his trembling hands. She notices the tremor now. His fingers shake as he holds the consent form. Why do your hands shake? The question comes out before she can stop it. Daniel's face goes blank, professional mask slipping for just a second, then back. Sign or don't sign, he says quietly, but decide quickly. She doesn't have much time. Morrison speaks without looking at them, voice directed at the tent wall. Temperature is dropping, 93.1 now. Blankets aren't working, hot water bottles aren't working. Her body is shutting down. He finally turns his head, makes eye contact with Sachiko for the first time since entering the tent. She needs body heat, skin-to-skin contact. It's the fastest way to raise core temperature in severe hypothermia. He pauses, lets that sink in. But I can't do it. Sachiko's grip on the bone saw loosens, confusion replacing certainty. You can't, she asks in English. Her accent is thick but comprehensible. No, Morrison's voice cracks slightly. She's unconscious. She can't consent. If I touch her without consent, even to save her life, it's assault. It's a violation. It's a court-martial offense. He says this like it's obvious, like there's no other way to think about it. So I'm asking you. His eyes hold hers. Will you hold her body heat protocol, skin to skin? You're a woman, you're medical staff. You understand what's happening. Will you consent to hold her? The question hangs in the cold air. Behind Morrison, Daniel's hands shake harder. Behind Sachiko, Tomoko whispers in Japanese, it's a trap. They want you to agree so they can say you cooperated. But Morrison isn't looking at Tomoko. He's looking at Sachiko. Waiting, not demanding, not threatening, just waiting for an answer to a question that shouldn't exist in war. Sachiko looks at Mieko, gray skin, barely breathing, 19 years old. Joined the nursing corps because her mother was sick and military families got better rations. Never wanted to be here. Never wanted any of this. The numbers don't lie. 93.1 degrees, 40 minutes to organ failure, maybe 30 now. Sachiko's body decides before her brain catches up. She's moving, crossing the tent, setting down the bone saw. It clatters against the metal instrument tray. The sound seems impossibly loud. Her fingers find her shirt buttons, start unfastening them. Morrison immediately turns away, eyes back to the ceiling, giving her privacy even now. Tell me when you're ready, he says to the canvas roof. Sachiko pulls Mieko's cold body against her chest, skin to skin. The girl is ice, frozen meat, barely alive. Morrison wraps blankets around both of them without looking directly at them. His hands work by feel. Professional, detached, respectful. I'll check her temperature every 10 minutes. Keep her close. Keep her warm. Then he walks away, stands on the other side of the tent, back turned, giving them space. Sachiko holds Mieko and feels nothing but cold. The girl's heart beats weakly against her chest, fluttering, inconsistent, fighting. She looks at Morrison's broad back, at Daniel standing near the entrance still trembling, at the consent form lying on the instrument tray beside the bone saw she almost used. Everything she was told about Americans is colliding with everything she's experiencing. The collision is more terrifying than violence would have been, Because violence she was prepared for. Violence she understood. This she has no framework for. This might be worse than violence. Because this might be real. Let me go back 42 hours. Let me show you how we got here. February 12th, 1945. 6 in the morning. Saipan Base Camp. Sergeant James Morrison pours coffee into a dented metal cup. Army issue, tastes like burnt dirt and diesel fuel. He drinks it anyway because he's been awake for 16 hours and the day hasn't even started yet. The morning air is cold for Saipan. 58 degrees. The Marines around him wear jackets and complain. Morrison from Vermont considers this moderate autumn weather. He watches the sun rise over the Pacific. Somewhere beyond that horizon, Japan is burning. American B-29s are turning cities into ash. The war is nearly over. Everyone knows it. But wars don't end cleanly. They end in places like this, in cold tents, in field hospitals, in the space between official victory and actual peace. Captain Richard Hayes approaches, 52 years old, Texas rancher before the war, still wears cowboy boots under his uniform, still walks like a man used to open spaces and honest work. Morrison. Sir. Hayes lights a cigarette, offers one to Morrison, who shakes his head. Order came through last night, Hayes says. 47 Japanese female POWs inbound, pulled from caves in the northern sector. Medics needed for assessment. Morrison sets down his coffee cup. 47 women, nurses, pharmacists, medical staff, largest group of female Japanese POWs we've captured in the Pacific Theater. Hayes exhales smoke. They're going to be difficult. Difficult how, difficult as in they think we're going to torture and kill them. Difficult as in they've been told that American soldiers are demons who rape women and eat babies. Difficult as in some of them might try to kill themselves rather than face what they think is coming. Morrison nods slowly. He's seen this before. German POWs who expected death camps and got hot meals. Italian prisoners who expected torture and got medical care. The disconnect between propaganda and reality always produces the same reaction: terror, confusion, disbelief. They'll need processing, Hayes continues, medical assessment, treatment for injuries, malnutrition, disease. Standard Geneva Convention protocol. Understood, sir. Hayes studies him. You good for this, Morrison? Morrison's hand moves unconsciously to his breast pocket. The telegram folded there. 6 weeks old, still sharp as broken glass. I'm fine, sir. That's not what I asked. Morrison picks up his coffee, drinks, sets it down. I'll follow protocol. Every word, every procedure. These women will receive treatment according to Geneva Convention standards. No exceptions. Hayes watches him for a long moment, sees something in Morrison's face, some grief, some determination born from loss. That's what I wanted to hear. Hayes claps him on the shoulder. Because the way we treat these women matters. It matters for them. It matters for us. It matters for what happens after this war ends. How so? Because wars end, son, but the memories of how we behaved don't end. These women will go home someday. They'll tell people what happened here, what we did, how we treated them. Hayes drops his cigarette, grinds it under his boot, and I want them to tell the truth. That American soldiers followed the rules even when the rules were hard, that we saw them as human beings, not just enemies. Morrison thinks about Thomas, frozen, starving, dying alone in a camp where rules were suggestions and human dignity was weakness. Yes, sir, he says. I'll make sure they're treated right. 2 hours later, the trucks arrive. Morrison watches 47 women climb down from covered transports. They move slowly, painfully. Some help others who can barely walk. All of them are starving, hollow-cheeked, sunken eyes, clothes hanging off skeletal frames. They've been in caves for 6 days, no food, minimal water, waiting for American forces to move on so they could escape. Instead, the caves collapsed, trapped them. Marines pulled them out one by one. Now they stand in the processing area, huddled together like animals expecting slaughter. Morrison approaches with his medical bag visible, hands empty, moving slowly. Daniel Torres walks beside him, ready to translate. The women tense. Some step back. One older woman, the one Morrison will learn, as Tomoko Sasaki spits at his feet. Akuma, she hisses. Demon. Morrison doesn't react. He's been called worse. He signals Daniel to translate. My name is Sergeant James Morrison. I'm a medic. I need to check you for injuries and illness. No one will touch you without permission. Daniel translates. The women stare, disbelieving. Morrison pulls out a form. Red Cross standard medical consent. Japanese on the left, English on the right. This is a consent form. It explains what medical procedures will perform. You can refuse any treatment. You can ask questions. You have the right to understand everything we're doing, and he holds it where they can all see. Tomoko snatches it from his hand, reads every word. Her face changes, not softening, just confused. This says I can refuse treatment. Yes. And if I refuse, then you don't get treatment. You still get food, water, shelter. Just no medical care until you change your mind. You're giving me power. Daniel hesitates on the translation, then says carefully, you have choice. Tomoko barks a laugh, bitter, broken. This is a joke. No, ma'am, Daniel says. His hands are trembling again. This is protocol. Sachiko Tanaka steps forward, shorter than Tomoko, younger, but something in her eyes suggests she's seen too much death to be easily intimidated. I'll sign, she says in accented English, but I want a copy. Morrison nods to Daniel, who produces duplicate forms. You'll get a copy of everything. Medical records, consent forms, treatment notes, all documented by the Red Cross. Sachiko takes the form, reads it carefully, then signs her name in careful Japanese characters. She folds the copy, puts it in her pocket. First possession she's had since capture. 5 more women sign. Tomoko doesn't. Neither does a thin, hard-faced woman in her late 20s who Morrison will learn is Akane Yoshida. That's fine, Morrison says. The offer remains open. When you're ready. He turns to the women who signed. Now I need to do medical assessments. I'll examine you one at a time in the medical tent. A female Red Cross observer will be present. I'll announce every procedure before I do it. You can refuse anything. Understood. Oh, they nod, uncertain, waiting for the trap. There is no trap, just medicine, just protocol. Just a man from Vermont who watched his brother die because enemies didn't follow rules and who was determined that prisoners under his care will be treated differently. The examinations take 3 hours. Morrison works methodically. Temperature, pulse, blood pressure, visual inspection for injuries. Each time he announces what he's doing before he does it. Each time he asks permission. Most of the women have malnutrition, dehydration, minor injuries, nothing life-threatening, except Mieko Hayashi. She's the last one examined, 19 years old, barely conscious, burning with fever despite shivering with cold. Temperature 94.8 degrees, dropping. Morrison's stomach tightens. This is bad. This is hypothermia setting in. This is what killed Thomas. He calls for blankets, hot water bottles, everything in the warming protocol. But hours later, as night falls, Mieko keeps getting colder. The blankets aren't enough. The hot water bottles aren't enough. Her body is shutting down. Which brings us back to the tent, to the bone saw, to Sachiko holding a dying girl while Morrison stares at the ceiling and Daniel's hands shake with memories of his dead parents. 10 minutes pass. Morrison checks Mieko's temperature, 93.4 degrees, rising, slowly, too slowly, but rising. Keep holding her, he says quietly. 20 minutes, 93.7, 30 minutes, 94.2. Sachiko's arms ache. Her shoulders scream, but she doesn't let go, because the numbers don't lie. Mieko is warming. Body heat is working. Around them, the other women watch in silence. Tomoko's cynical mask has cracked. Keiko has stopped calculating escape routes. Even Akane the pragmatist stares with something approaching wonder. Morrison announces 94.6 degrees, out of critical range. Keep holding for another hour to be safe. An hour. Sachiko's muscles are cramping. But she nods. Behind Morrison, Daniel steps outside. She can hear him through the canvas. Sobbing, deep wrenching sounds. Months of grief breaking through professional distance. Morrison follows him out. Sachiko can't hear what they say, but she can imagine. Two men, two different losses, same war, same weight. Tomoko approaches Sachiko, speaks in Japanese, Mom. He asks permission. I know. He could have just done it. We're prisoners. We have no power. But he asked. I know. Why, why would an enemy do that? Sachiko looks at Mieko's face, color returning, breathing steadier, alive. I don't know, she admits, but he did. 95.1 degrees, 95.8, 96.4. 3 hours after Sachiko started holding her, Mieko's eyes flutter open, brown, bloodshot, completely confused. She sees Sachiko first. Japanese face, familiar uniform. Then she sees the canvas walls, the American equipment, Morrison's back as he checks supplies. She screams, sharp, the sound of someone waking into a nightmare. Sachiko holds her tighter. Stop. Listen to me. Mieko thrashes, weak, still hypothermic, but terrified. They didn't hurt us, Sachiko says in rapid Japanese. I don't understand it. I don't know why. But they didn't hurt us. But the officers lied about everything. Those words don't come from Sachiko. They come from Tomoko, the cynical one, the hard one, the one who refused to sign consent forms. She's holding a signed form now, filled out while Sachiko was holding Mieko. 3 hours of watching, 3 hours of evidence, 3 hours of cognitive dissonance finally breaking through. Tomoko meets Sachiko's eyes. We were lied to about everything. The tent falls silent. 7 Japanese women, 2 American soldiers, one truth emerging from the wreckage of propaganda. Morrison turns around, sees Mieko awake, approaches slowly, stops 6 feet away. How do you feel, he asked through Daniel. Mieko stares at him, at the man who saved her life by asking someone else to hold her, the man who gave privacy and dignity to an enemy who expected torture. She starts crying, not from fear, from confusion, from the collapse of everything she thought she knew about the world. Morrison nods once. Get some rest. You're safe here. He steps outside into the pre-dawn darkness. Daniel follows, finds Morrison sitting on an empty ammunition crate, head in his hands. You okay? Morrison doesn't answer for a long time. Then, my brother didn't get this treatment. Thomas didn't get consent forms. He didn't get protocol. He got cold and starvation and death. I know. These women are enemies. My brother was American, but they're getting better treatment than he got because we follow rules and the Germans didn't. Morrison looks up. Does that make sense to you? Daniel sits beside him. My parents were killed by Japanese soldiers 3 weeks ago. Bayonets, in our living room. Manila Massacre. Morrison turns, stares. So no, Daniel continues. It doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense. But I'm here translating for the people who wear the same uniform as my parents' killers because someone has to see them as human. And today I saw 7 women learn that their enemy follows rules. That matters, even if it doesn't make sense. They sit together as dawn breaks over Saipan. 2 men, 2 losses, 1 choice to follow protocol even when it hurts. Inside the tent, Sachiko still holds Mieko. The girl has fallen asleep. Warm now, safe, alive. Sachiko looks at the bone saw on the instrument tray. 3 feet away, untouched. She could have killed Morrison. 1 swing, 90 seconds. Instead, she saved Mieko. 3 hours of holding, 3 hours of choosing trust over violence. The tent flap opens. A 3rd American enters. Female, older. Red Cross armband, camera. I'm Margaret O'Brien, she says in careful Japanese. Red Cross observer. I document prisoner treatment. May I take photographs? She's asking permission. Even with a camera, Sachiko almost laughs. Would laugh if she weren't so exhausted, so confused, so fundamentally disoriented by a world where enemies ask permission and follow rules and see humans instead of objects. Yes, she says, you can photograph. Click, flash, white light burns her retinas. When her vision clears, Margaret is holding a Polaroid. Instant photograph, new technology. She hands it to Sachiko. Sachiko sees herself, hollow-eyed, exhausted, holding Mieko. Behind her, Morrison checking supplies. Daniel translating. American flag on the tent pole. Evidence. Proof. Documentation. This is yours, Margaret says. History. Whatever happens next, this moment existed. This treatment happened. You were here. You were seen. Sachiko takes the photograph. Second possession since capture. First consent form. Second proof that consent was honored. She looks at the 7 women around her. All alive. All fed. All treated according to rules that shouldn't exist in war, but somehow do. Outside, the sun rises fully over Saipan. February 15th, 1945. The war has 8 more months to run. Atomic bombs haven't fallen yet. Surrender hasn't been announced. The Emperor's voice hasn't crackled over radio admitting defeat. But in this tent, something has already ended. The propaganda that said Americans are demons. The certainty that enemies are monsters. The belief that war erases all rules. Sachiko folds the Polaroid carefully, puts it with her consent form. Evidence for a truth that no one back home will believe. Evidence she'll carry for 52 years. Evidence that will outlive everyone in this tent. But that comes later. Much later. For now, 7 women are learning that breakfast is coming. That American military breakfast includes bacon. That the smell of meat cooking can break through propaganda better than any words. For now, Morrison is walking back into camp to file paperwork, documenting that he followed protocol, that consent was obtained, that human dignity was preserved even in the middle of war. For now, Daniel is washing his face in cold water, trying to stop his hands from shaking, wondering how to forgive the unforgivable. For now, Margaret is packing her camera, preparing her report for Geneva, adding one more data point to the statistical truth that American POW camps have a 0.4% death rate, while Japanese camps have 27%. For now, Sachiko is holding a girl who nearly died, feeling her warmth return, feeling her heartbeat steady, thinking about bone saws and consent forms and the impossibility of enemies who see you as human. The smell of bacon reaches the tent. Someone is cooking breakfast. Real breakfast. American breakfast. More food than Sachiko has seen in months. Her stomach growls. Traitor organ. Responding to the enemy's food with animal hunger. Mieko stirs in her arms, wakes again, calmer this time. Do you smell that? She whispers. Yes. Is it real? Sachiko doesn't know how to answer because nothing about this seems real, but the smell is definitely bacon, and her stomach is definitely responding, and Morrison is definitely checking vitals with professional detachment, and Daniel is definitely translating with trembling hands, and Margaret is definitely documenting everything. So maybe real isn't the right question. Maybe the right question is what happens when reality contradicts everything you were taught. What happens when enemies behave better than allies? What happens when the monster shows you a consent form? I think so, Sachiko finally says. I think it's real. Outside, Captain Hayes walks past the tent, smells the bacon cooking, smiles slightly. Texas rancher smile. The smile of a man who knows that the best way to defeat an enemy isn't to kill them. It's to show them their government lied. He pulls out a baseball from his pocket. Scuffed. Grass-stained. Been in every camp he's commanded. German POWs played with it. Italian POWs played with it. Soon Japanese POWs will play with it too. We'll learn that Americans play games even in war. We'll discover that the point of baseball is getting home safe. But that comes in the next part of the story. That comes after breakfast, after bacon, after the moment when 7 women taste American abundance and realize that everything they knew was propaganda. For now, in this tent, at this moment, Sachiko Tanaka holds Mieko Hayashi and feels her breathing steady and knows that she just participated in something that shouldn't exist. A war where enemies follow rules, where captors ask permission, where the measuring tape measures body temperature instead of degradation. She reaches for her pocket, feels the folded consent form, feels the Polaroid photograph. Evidence, proof, truth. The bone saw sits on the instrument tray. Cold, unused, unnecessary. She never touched it again. The bacon arrives at 7:30 in the morning. Morrison carries the tray himself. Metal plates stacked high, steam rising into the cold February air. Each plate holds the same thing. 4 strips of bacon edges, crispy and curled. 2 fried eggs, yolks intact and golden. 3 slices of white bread toasted to pale brown. Hash browns in a neat pile. A cup of coffee, black and bitter. Wallpaper cup of sugar. Butter wrapped in foil. 2,100 calories. Standard American military breakfast ration. More food than most Japanese frontline soldiers receive in an entire day. Sachiko sits up on her stretcher. Her arms still ache from holding Mieko for 3 hours. But the smell cuts through exhaustion, through confusion, through every defense mechanism her brain has constructed. It smells like childhood, like the American restaurant in Tokyo where her father took her once before the war, like a world that doesn't exist anymore. Around her, the other women stir, noses twitching, stomachs betraying them with audible growls. Mieko, still weak from hypothermia, starts crying again. "Why are they torturing us?" she whispers in Japanese. Sachiko understands. Smelling food you can't have is worse than no food at all. This must be psychological warfare. Show them abundance, then take it away. Break them with cruelty disguised as kindness. Morrison sets the tray down on a folding table. The plates clatter, coffee sloshes slightly. He straightens, announces in English, then waits for Daniel to translate. "Breakfast, standard military issue for all personnel on base. 2,100 calories. You'll receive 3 meals daily at this caloric level as long as you're in American custody. Geneva Convention requires we feed prisoners the same rations as our own soldiers." Daniel translates carefully. His hands still tremble slightly, but his voice is steady. The women stare at the food like it might vanish. Keiko whispers, "Is it poisoned?" Morrison overhears, picks up a strip of bacon from his own plate, identical to theirs, bites down. The crunch is audible in the tense silence. Grease glistens on his lips. He chews slowly, swallows, doesn't collapse, doesn't die. "Not poison," Daniel translates unnecessarily. "Just breakfast." Nobody moves. 7 Japanese women frozen between hunger and suspicion. Tomoko breaks first, not toward the food, toward confrontation. She stands, walks to Morrison, stops 3 feet away. Her posture is rigid, challenging. "What do you want from us?" she asks in Japanese. Daniel translates. Morrison meets her eyes. "Nothing, you're prisoners of war. We're required to provide food, shelter, and medical care according to Geneva Convention standards. That's the beginning and end of what we want. Nobody feeds enemies this well without wanting something. America does." Morrison's voice is flat, factual. "It's not mercy, it's law. International law that we signed and follow." Tomoko's face twists, disbelief mixing with something else. Something that might be rage or might be grief. She snatches a plate, sits down hard on her stretcher, picks up bacon with her fingers, brings it to her nose, inhales. Her eyes close. Then she bites. The sound of her chewing fills the tent. Slow, deliberate, tasting, testing, waiting for poison or pain or proof of deception. Nothing happens except bacon. Salt and smoke and fat and something sweet from the curing process. Her throat works as she swallows. Then she's reaching for the second strip, and the third, eating faster now, hunger overriding caution. Around her, the other women watch. Then one by one, they reach for their own plates. Sachiko lifts bacon to her mouth. The texture hits first. Crispy exterior cracking between her teeth. Interior chewy and rich. The taste follows, salt exploding on her tongue. Smoke flavor, umami depth that's almost painful after months of bland rice and dried fish. She chews, swallows, feels fat coat her throat. Warm, heavy, real. Then she's crying, not from pain, from the impossibility of this moment. She's an enemy prisoner, and her captors are feeding her better than her own country fed her when she was free. Beside her, Mieko sobs between bites. Keiko eats with tears streaming down her face. Even Tomoko, hard-faced Tomoko, has wet eyes. Morrison watches for a moment, then steps outside, gives them privacy for their breakdown. Captain Hayes is smoking near the mess tent. He looks up as Morrison approaches. They eating, sir? Yes, sir. Good. Hayes exhales, studies Morrison's face. You look like you haven't slept in a week. 42 hours, sir, since the order came through. Go get some rest. I'll have Lieutenant Chen take over medical monitoring. Morrison shakes his head. I'd rather stay with them. Protocol says assigned medical personnel should maintain continuity of care when possible. Hayes smiles slightly. You planning to adopt these women, Morrison? No, sir. Just planning to follow the manual. The manual doesn't require you to work yourself to death. The manual says prisoners should receive consistent care from familiar personnel when practical. Reduces stress, builds trust. Morrison pulls the small green book from his pocket. Manual for Prisoner of War Camps, U.S. Army, May 1943. Dog-eared from reading. Page 47, Section 12. Hayes laughs, actually laughs. You've memorized it. Yes, sir. After I heard about Thomas, I read it cover to cover. 3 times. Figured if I was going to have prisoners under my care, I'd know every rule. Follow every procedure. Because the Germans didn't follow rules and my brother died. So I will follow rules and maybe somebody's brother lives. The laughter fades from Hayes's face. He claps Morrison on the shoulder. Once. Hard. You're a good man's son, better than this war deserves. No such thing as too good, sir. Just different priorities. Hayes nods, flicks his cigarette away. I remember the first time we fed German POWs at Camp Hearn, back in Texas, 43. Ranchers donated beef. We had more meat than we knew what to do with. Those German boys hadn't seen steak in years. You should have seen their faces. What happened? They ate. Then they cried. Then they wrote letters home saying American camps had better food than German civilians. Their families didn't believe them. Called it propaganda. But it was just truth. Hayes pulls out a baseball from his pocket. Scuffed leather. Grass stains. That's when I learned something important. What's that, sir? Best way to defeat an enemy isn't to kill him. It's to show him his government lied to him. Show him that everything he was told about us was propaganda. Show him that we're not demons. We're just people who follow rules. He tosses the baseball up, catches it, and once he knows his government lied about us, he starts wondering what else they lied about. Morrison considers this. You think Bacon will deprogram them. Bacon's just the start. Wait till they see the rest. The rest, Hayes grins. Texas rancher grin. Son, we're going to teach Japanese POWs how to play baseball. 3 days later, on a Sunday afternoon, Sachiko hears shouting. Not angry shouting, excited shouting. Male voices yelling in American accents. Words she doesn't fully understand, but recognizes as sports-related. Strike 3. Safe at second. That's out. She walks to the fence separating the women's medical area from the main camp. Other women follow, curious to spite themselves. On a clear dirt diamond, 20 American soldiers are playing baseball. Bat, ball, bases, running. The rules are mysterious, but the energy is clear. They're having fun. In the middle of a war, on an island still being cleared of Japanese holdouts, with enemy prisoners 50 yards away. They're playing a game. Daniel appears beside her. She's learned he does this, materializes when needed, always with that slight tremor in his hands, always with careful Japanese. Baseball, he explains, American sport. We play every Sunday when not in active combat. Why Pomo? Because it reminds us of home, because even in war, Americans try to maintain normalcy. He pauses. Because we believe if we stop playing games, stop laughing, stop being human, then war has won, even if we survive. Sachiko watches a soldier swing and miss. His teammates razz him. Good-natured. Familiar. The way brothers tease each other. Captain Hayes approaches. He's wearing civilian clothes. Denim jeans, cotton shirt, cowboy boots. The Texas rancher fully visible without the military uniform. He's carrying a baseball. Afternoon, ma'am. He nods to Sachiko, speaks slow, clear English. You understand baseball? She shakes her head. It's a game where you try to get home safe. That's the whole point. Hit the ball, run the bases, touch home plate before someone tags you out. He holds up the baseball. Simple concept, complicated execution. He tosses the ball to her. She catches it reflexively. The leather is worn smooth, stitches rough against her palm. This ball's been in every camp I've commanded. Germans played with it, Italians played with it. He meets her eyes. Want to try? Sachiko stares at him. At this American officer in cowboy boots offering to teach enemy prisoners a children's game. I'm a prisoner. You're a person who's never played baseball. That's a tragedy worth fixing. Behind her, Tomoko snorts. This is a bird, but Keiko is already moving forward. I'll try. Within 30 minutes, 7 Japanese women stand awkwardly on the baseball diamond. Morrison demonstrates how to hold a bat. Daniel explains the rules in Japanese. Hayes pitches slowly, carefully, giving them a chance to connect. Sachiko steps up to bat. The wood feels foreign in her hands, heavy, unbalanced. Hayes winds up, throws. The ball comes at her slowly, almost insultingly slow. She swings, misses completely. The Americans cheer anyway. Good swing, try again. She swings again, misses again, more cheers. You're getting closer. Third pitch, she connects. The ball dribbles towards second base, barely moving. Run, Morrison yells. Run to first base. Sachiko runs, confused, exhilarated, feeling stupid and free at the same time. She reaches first base. The American first baseman, a kid from Iowa who looks maybe 20, grins. Safe, well done, ma'am. Safe. She's safe on an American military base playing an American game while her country is being bombed by American planes and she's safe. The cognitive dissonance makes her dizzy. After the game, Hayes approaches her again, holds out the baseball. Keep it. Why? Because when you go home, I want you to remember that Americans play games even in war. Maybe that's worth something. Sachiko takes the ball. Third possession since capture. Consent form. Photograph. Baseball. Evidence accumulating. Proof of something she still doesn't fully understand. That evening, Margaret O'Brien returns to the medical tent. Red Cross armband. Camera. Clipboard thick with forms. Good evening, she says in her careful Japanese. I'm here to conduct formal documentation of prisoner treatment. She opens a folder, lays out photographs on the table. I've documented 15 POW camps, American, German, Japanese, Soviet. I verify conditions, report to Geneva, create historical record. She pulls out one set of photos, skeletal men, dead eyes, skin stretched over bone. Cabanatuan, Philippines, Japanese run camp holding American prisoners. Average death rate 27%. Causes of starvation, disease, torture, execution. The Japanese women stare at the images. Sachiko feels something cold settle in her stomach. Margaret pulls out different photos. Healthy men, clean barracks, work details, sports. Camp Hearn, Texas, American run camp holding German POWs. Average death rate 0.4%. Mostly natural causes, heart attacks, accidents. She lays out a chart. Numbers, statistics, verified by neutral Red Cross observers. POW death rates by captor, nation. Soviet camps holding Germans 35%. Japanese camps holding Allies 27%. German camps holding Soviets 23%. German camps holding Western Allies 4%. American camps holding Axis 0.4%. The numbers are obscene. The truth they tell is devastating. Tomoko's voice is sharp. This is propaganda. Margaret looks at her directly. These are statistics verified by neutral Switzerland. The Red Cross doesn't take sides. We document facts. Why show us this? Because you deserve to know the truth. Because when you go home, you'll tell people about your treatment. I want you to understand context. American camps aren't exceptionally kind. They're exceptionally compliant with international law. She pulls out a small book, hands it to Sachiko. Geneva Convention relative to the treatment of prisoners of war, signed in 1929. America signed this, so did Japan, so did Germany, so did most nations involved in this war. Margaret's voice is quiet, but signing and following are different things. Sachiko opens the book, reads the English slowly. Article 13. Prisoners of war must at all times be humanely treated. Article 26. Food rations shall be sufficient in quantity and quality to maintain good health. Article 30, medical attention shall be given without delay. Words on paper, rules agreed to by nations, then ignored or followed based on whether humanity or expedience won the day. Why does America follow this? Sachiko asks. Margaret considers the question. Many reasons. Legal culture, moral tradition, practical reciprocity, fear of war crimes trials. But at the core, I think Americans genuinely believe rules should apply even to enemies, even when inconvenient. It's part of their national identity. That makes no sense. Perhaps not, but it's true. Margaret begins photographing the tent interior, medical equipment, food rations laid out for scale, consent forms spread on the table. She asks each woman, "May I photograph you?" 5 agree, 2 refuse. Margaret photographs the 5. Thanks the 2 for their honesty. No pressure, no coercion. She hands Sachiko a Polaroid. The instant image shows Sachiko sitting on her stretcher, holding a coffee cup, hollow-eyed, but clean and fed. Behind her, Morrison checking supplies, Daniel organizing medical records, American flag on tent pole. "This is yours," Margaret says. Evidence. When people question your story, show them this. Show them the consent forms. Show them the medical records. Show them the proof. Sachiko takes the photograph, stares at her own image, looking human. Not tortured, not broken, just exhausted and confused and alive. "No one will believe this happened," she says quietly. "Perhaps not now, but someday historians will examine the evidence, and they'll see that in February 1945 on Saipan, 47 Japanese women were treated according to law. That matters, even if it takes decades for people to accept it." Margaret packs her camera, prepares to leave, pauses at the tent entrance. "One more thing. You'll be transported to Hawaii next week. Camp Honolulu, larger facility, more resources, same protocols. Fear spikes through the women. Hawaii, unknown. What if this kindness is unique to Morrison? What if the next camp is different?" Margaret sees their faces, understands. Every American POW camp follows the same manual, same rules. Geneva Convention is federal law, not individual kindness. Morrison is good at his job, but he's not exceptional in his treatment of you. He's standard. She lets that sink in. "That's what I want you to understand. This isn't about good Americans versus bad Americans. This is about a system that protects prisoners by law, and laws apply everywhere." After she leaves, the tent falls silent. Tomoko speaks first. She's saying this is how they always do things. "Yes," Sachiko says, "Morrison isn't special. He's just following procedures." "Yes." Which means in Hawaii, it will be the same. According to her, yes. Oh yeah, and Tomoko lies back on her stretcher, stares at the canvas ceiling. "We were lied to about everything." Nobody disagrees. That night, Daniel sits outside the tent, hands shaking worse than usual. Sachiko finds him. She's been watching him for days, watching the tremor, watching him fight through translation duty despite visible distress. She sits beside him, doesn't speak, just sits. After a long moment, Daniel speaks. His voice is quiet, raw. "You know why my hands shake?" It's not a question. Sachiko does know. She's watched him for days, seen the tremor spike when he translates pain, when he looks at faces that remind him of someone lost. "Yes," she says, 3 weeks before I met you, I lost everything." He doesn't elaborate, doesn't need to. The grief is written in every trembling finger. "And now I'm here, translating for people wearing the same uniform as the ones who..." He trails off, can't finish. Sachiko waits, gives him space. "You look like my mother," he finally says. "All of you." Chio has her hands. Keiko laughs like her. Tomoko has her stubborn face. "I see her everywhere in this camp." His voice breaks. "I can't hate you because you're too human." Sachiko doesn't speak for a long time. Then, "My fiancé died at Tarawa, November 1943. Marines killed him. I don't know how, just that he went to that island and never came back." Daniel turns, looks at her. "So you should hate Morrison, and I should hate all of you, but we don't." She pauses. "Why?" "Because hate requires energy I don't have anymore." No, Sachiko says, because hate requires seeing enemies as enemies, and you keep seeing us as people. Daniel's hands are still shaking. Sachiko reaches out slowly, telegraphing the movement, places her hand over his. The tremor steadies, doesn't stop, just steadies. I can't give you your parents back, she says quietly. I can't undo what Japanese soldiers did, but I can say this, I'm sorry, not because I did it, but because people wearing my uniform did it, and I'm ashamed. Daniel nods, tears running silent. And I'm sorry about your fiancé, not because Marines killed him, but because war killed both of them. And war is killing all of us. And maybe the only way we survive is by choosing to see each other. They sit together, Japanese nurse, Filipino-American translator, both grieving, both trying, both choosing humanity over hate despite every reason not to. From inside the tent, Morrison watches through the canvas gap. Can't hear the conversation. But he sees two people holding hands, one crying, one comforting. Hayes joins him, follows his gaze. That's dangerous, Hayes observes. What is letting prisoners and soldiers get close? Fraternization, against regulations. Morrison's voice is flat. They're not fraternizing, they're grieving. Same thing to command. No, sir. Fraternization is sexual. This is human. There's a difference. Hayes considers this. You're probably right, but command won't see it that way if they find out. Then we don't tell command, because Torres needs this, and she needs this, and maybe that matters more than regulations. Hayes smiles slightly. You know what your problem is, Morrison. What's that, sir? You actually believe the things we say we believe. Freedom, dignity, human rights. Most of us just say those words. You actually live them. Is that a problem? In war. Sometimes in peace, it's what we need. Hayes lights a cigarette. Keep doing what you're doing. I'll handle command if they ask questions. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me. Just keep following that damn manual. And keep those women alive. Because 50 years from now, when historians write about this war, I want them to see that we did this part right. Morrison nods, returns to checking supplies, organizing medications, following protocols. Inside the tent, Sachiko lies awake. She's holding three things: consent form, photograph, baseball. Tomorrow there will be more food, more medical care, more evidence that everything she was taught is wrong. Next week, transport to Hawaii, new camp, new personnel. But according to Margaret, same rules, same manual, same system protecting prisoners through law rather than kindness. She thinks about Morrison staring at the ceiling to avoid making eye contact, about Daniel shaking hands steadying when she touched them, about Captain Hayes offering baseball lessons to enemy prisoners, about Margaret documenting everything for a future that may or may not care. She thinks about the bone saw she almost used, about Mieko nearly dying, about bacon breakfast and crying while eating because the food was too good and the enemy was too human. She thinks about going home someday, about telling this story, about people not believing, about being called traitor or collaborator or liar. But she has evidence now, paper proof, photographic proof, physical proof. The consent form crinkles in her pocket. Patient consent required. May refuse at any time. 5 years from now, she'll use this form to get a job at an Allied hospital. 10 years from now, she'll show it to her father, who won't fully believe until he sees the documentation. 52 years from now, she'll be interviewed on television, pulling out this yellowed paper telling the truth that took half a century to be heard. But that's later, much later. For now, she's a prisoner of war in an American camp, being fed bacon, being taught baseball, being treated according to rules that shouldn't exist in war but somehow do. For now, that's enough. The tent is dark, 7 women breathing in sleep, one guard outside visible through the canvas gap, relaxed, not expecting trouble. Sachiko closes her eyes. Tomorrow more impossible kindness, more evidence, more reasons to question everything she thought she knew about enemies and allies, and what happens when you're utterly powerless in someone else's hands. She falls asleep holding the baseball. Leather worn smooth by German hands, Italian hands, now Japanese hands. All of them trying to get home safe. That's the point, Captain Hayes said. The whole point of the game. Hit the ball, run the bases. Get home safe. Simple concept, complicated execution. But maybe Sachiko thinks as sleep takes her, maybe that's the point of everything. Not just baseball, but war, but survival, but being human in inhumane times. Get home safe. All of us, even the enemies, especially the enemies, because that's what rules are for, to make sure everyone gets a chance to go home, even when going home seems impossible, even when home doesn't exist anymore. Even then, the ship cuts through Pacific waters under a white flag marked with red crosses, USS Sanctuary, hospital ship, protected under Geneva Convention, untouchable by international law even in the middle of war. 47 Japanese women stand on deck watching Saipan disappear behind them. 12 days in that camp. 12 days that shattered everything they thought they knew about enemies. Sachiko holds the ship's railing, metal cold against her palms. In her pocket, consent form photograph and a letter she received yesterday. Red Cross delivery from her father. She hasn't opened it yet, afraid of what it might say, afraid he's dead, afraid he's alive but ashamed of her, afraid he won't believe what happened here. Beside her, Mieko watches the horizon, the girl who nearly died of hypothermia, who was saved by protocol instead of heroism, who now weighs 15 pounds more than she did 2 weeks ago. Do you think Hawaii will be the same? Mieko asked quietly. Sachiko doesn't answer immediately. She's been wondering this herself. Morrison assured them. Margaret documented it. Captain Hayes explained that Geneva Convention is federal law, not camp policy. But fear doesn't respond to logic. Fear asks, what if this was exceptional? What if the next camp reverts to what we expected? What if kindness was temporary? Margaret says all American camps follow the same manual. Sachiko finally says, Margaret could be lying. She's Red Cross, neutral, Switzerland verified. Switzerland could be wrong. Sachiko looks at the younger woman, sees the fear underneath the questions, recognizes it because she feels it too. Then we'll find out together, she says, all 47 of us. Morrison appears on deck. He's been assigned to accompany them to Hawaii. Medical continuity, the order said. Familiar face reduces prisoner stress, improves compliance with treatment protocols. He approaches slowly, always slow, always visible, always announcing his presence before getting close. Morning, ladies? He nods, waits for Daniel to translate, even though several of them understand English now. Protocol requires translation for official communications. We'll arrive in Hawaii tomorrow morning. Camp Honolulu. You'll be processed there. Medical assessments, same as Saipan, same consent forms, same protocols. He pulls out the small green manual from his pocket, shows it to them like evidence. This goes everywhere American forces go. Every camp commander has one. Every medic has one. It's not suggestions. It's regulations. Violating it means court-martial. Tomoko steps forward. She's changed in 12 days. Still cynical, still sharp, but the edge has softened slightly. Reality wearing down suspicion through repetitive evidence. What if the camp commander ignores the manual? Then prisoners can file complaints with the Red Cross. Who reports to Geneva? Who can sanction the United States for treaty violations? Morrison's voice is matter of fact. It's not kindness, it's accountability. We follow rules because we face consequences if we don't. Japan signed Geneva Convention too, Tomoko says bitterly. I know. Morrison meets her eyes. That's between Japan and Geneva. All I can control is what happens under my watch. And under my watch, the manual gets followed. Every word. He leaves them with that. Returns to checking medical supplies. Always working. Always following procedures. Sachiko pulls out her father's letter. Stares at the envelope. Red Cross logo. Neutral Switzerland housing. 3 months for mail to move from Japan to American custody and back. She opens it, hands shaking slightly. The characters swim in front of her eyes. Her father's handwriting. Careful. Precise. The script of a man educated in Meiji-era formality. Sachiko, received your message through Red Cross. Relieved you are alive. Tokyo is destroyed. Our home is gone. I am staying with your aunt in Yokohama. You say Americans treat you well. You say Geneva Convention followed. I want to believe this. But how can I trust that you are not being forced to write these words? I am old Sachiko. I have lived through many wars. I know what victors do to captured women. If you have been dishonored, you must not feel shame. It is not your fault. Come home when you can. We will face whatever happened together. Your father. The words hit like a fist. He thinks she's been raped. Thinks she's lying to protect herself. Thinks treated well is code for broken but surviving. Her hands clench on the paper, creasing it. She wants to scream. Wants to tear the letter into pieces. Wants to reach through time and space and show him the consent forms, the photographs, the medical records, the baseball, everything that proves she's telling truth. But he won't believe. Can't believe. Because propaganda is stronger than paper. Belief is stronger than evidence. Tomoko appears beside her, reads the letter over her shoulder. Her face hardens. My family didn't respond at all, either dead or disowned. She crosses her arms. We survive American captivity just to be destroyed by Japanese shame. Other women gather. Keiko received a letter. Her mother believes her but is pragmatic. Stay where you are safe and fed. Osaka is starving. Bodies in streets. Come home when Japan recovers. I will wait for you. Chio's family is dead. Tokyo firebombing. Gone. Akane's letter says her husband divorced her. Married a woman who didn't surrender. I cannot be married to shame. The cruelty of it overwhelms. They survived caves collapsing. They survived hypothermia. They survived everything America was supposed to do to them but didn't. Now their own country is destroying them for surviving. Sachiko looks at the 46 women on this deck, realizes that going home might be harder than captivity, that shame waits for them in Japan, suspicion, judgment, social death for the crime of staying alive. She folds her father's letter carefully, puts it with her consent form and photograph. Then she pulls out paper. Red Cross stationery. 25 words maximum for messages to Japan. She writes carefully. Father, I understand your doubt. I have proof. Medical consent forms in Japanese and English. Photographs taken by Red Cross observer. Pay stubs from work program. All documented by Neutral Switzerland. When I come home, I will show you everything. Then you can decide if I am lying or if everything we were told about Americans was a lie. I love you. I am coming home. Wait for me, Sachiko. She hands it to the Red Cross officer on board. He counts the words, nods, files it for transmission. Will it matter? Will documents convince her father? Will evidence overcome propaganda? She doesn't know, but she has to try. Hawaii appears on the horizon at dawn. Green mountains, white beaches, paradise turned into military fortress. The women line up on deck, nervous. Morrison's assurances mean something, but not everything. They've learned to trust him. But Hawaii means new personnel, new commander, new medics, new chance for everything to fall apart. The ship docks. They disembark onto solid ground for the first time in 6 days. Camp Honolulu spreads before them, larger than Saipan. Permanent structures instead of tents. Fences, guard towers, 500 prisoners visible in different compounds. Japanese men, German men, Italian men, all separated by nationality and gender. A new officer approaches, older than Morrison, more decorated, hard-faced with desert campaign ribbons. Colonel James Patterson, 48, career Army, West Point graduate, commander of Honolulu. He addresses them through an interpreter. Not Daniel, who stayed in Saipan. A new translator, Japanese-American woman from California. Her accent is strange, American-shaped but Japanese fluent. Welcome to Camp Honolulu. You will be treated according to Geneva Convention standards. Red Cross visits weekly, mail permitted, medical care provided, work programs available on voluntary basis, paid at standard military rates. The same speech, word for word, different man, same protocol. Sachiko feels something crack in her chest. Not breaking, shifting. The last piece of propaganda crumbling under the weight of systematic evidence. This isn't Morrison being exceptionally kind. This is American policy, written down, enforced, replicated across every camp. Processing begins, medical assessments, consent forms. All of it identical to Saipan, different medics, same announcements before touching, same respect for refusal, same duplicate forms for prisoner records. The medic examining Sachiko is female, Lieutenant Sarah Chen, 29, Chinese American, nursing degree from University of California, San Francisco. "You're a surgical nurse?" Sarah asked through the translator. "Yes, Imperial Navy, 3 years." "Good, we need experienced hands. Wounded coming through from Iwo Jima, Okinawa. If you're interested in work program, medical facility needs staff." Sachiko blinks. "You want me to treat American soldiers? I want you to treat wounded people. That's what nurses do." The casual equation stops Sachiko's breath. As if nationality doesn't matter. As if enemies can be colleagues. As if war hasn't drawn absolute lines between us and them. "I'll think about it." Sachiko manages. "Take your time. Offers open." Sarah makes notes on her medical chart. "You're healthy. Weight improved since initial capture. No signs of disease or injury. You'll be cleared for general compound housing." She hands Sachiko her medical file. Complete documentation. Every examination, every consent form, every temperature reading from that night with Mieko. "This is yours," Sarah says. "You have right to your own medical records. Keep them. They're proof of treatment received." Proof, always proof. Americans document everything. Create paper trails. Build evidence mountains. Sachiko takes the file, adds it to her growing collection of documentation. The weight of paper proof is becoming substantial. The women are assigned to barracks. Clean, heated, beds with actual mattresses, lockers for belongings they don't have yet. They settle in slowly, waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting for kindness to curdle into cruelty. It doesn't happen. Days pass, then weeks. The routine establishes itself. Wake at 6, breakfast at 7, medical checks at 8, free time until lunch, afternoon work programs for those who volunteer. Dinner at 6, lights out at 10, 23 women volunteer for work programs, Sachiko included. She reports to the medical facility her first day terrified. What if the wounded soldiers attack her? What if they refuse treatment from Japanese hands? What if she's set up to fail? Her first patient is a Marine corporal, 22 years old, shrapnel wounds from Okinawa, left leg infected, needs wound cleaning and fresh dressing. He sees her approach, sees her face, stiffens. "You're Japanese." Yes, her English is improving. Daily exposure forcing fluency. Long pause. The Marine studies her face. Sachiko prepares for rejection, for hatred, for violence. "Can you fix my leg?" "Yes." "Then please do. It hurts like hell." She cleans the wound. He grits his teeth, but doesn't complain, doesn't curse her, doesn't flinch away from her touch, just endures the pain like soldiers have always endured pain. When she finishes, he says, "Thank you, ma'am." Ma'am, not Jap, not enemy. Ma'am. Sachiko fights tears, because this is absurd. She's treating a man who might have killed Japanese soldiers on Okinawa. He's thanking her with the same respect he'd give an American nurse. This is what propaganda never prepared her for. Mutual respect between enemies. Professional courtesy transcending nationality. The possibility that people can be people even in the middle of war. Over the next month, she treats dozens of American soldiers. Some are wary at first. Most adjust quickly. A few thank her specifically for gentleness, for skill, for caring about their pain. One soldier recovering from burns tells her, "My buddy was captured by Japanese forces on Bataan. He died in that camp, starved to death." Pause. "But you didn't do that. Japanese soldiers did that. You're not them. You're just trying to help, so thank you." The distinction breaks something in Sachiko's understanding of collective guilt. She's been carrying the weight of what Japan did to Allied prisoners, carrying shame for Manila Massacre, for Bataan Death March, for all the cruelty committed by people wearing her uniform. But this American soldier separates the uniform from the person, acknowledges that Japanese forces committed atrocities while recognizing that Sachiko is not responsible for those acts. It's a grace she didn't expect, doesn't deserve, can't fully process. She goes back to her barracks that night and cries. Not from sadness, from the cognitive dissonance of being treated better by enemies than by her own people. At the end of her first month, she receives payment, 80 cents per day times 30 days, $24, American currency. It's not much, but it's not nothing. It's acknowledgement that her labor has value, that she's not a slave, that even prisoners deserve compensation for work. She uses her first wages to buy small things from the camp store: soap, writing paper, stamps, a comb, small dignities that accumulate into something resembling personhood. Keiko buys chocolate, shares it with everyone. This is the first thing I've bought in 2 years, first choice I've made. The ability to choose even small things, even with minimal money, matters more than the purchases themselves. In June, the letters arrive, responses to their Red Cross messages. Sachiko's father writes again. Sachiko, I received your second message. You mentioned proof, documents, photographs. I want to believe you, but I must be honest. Many people here say that Americans force prisoners to write false testimonies, that they stage photographs, that everything is propaganda. I do not know what to believe, but I am your father. I will believe you. Bring your evidence, show me. Then I will judge. I love you. Come home safe. Progress. Not acceptance, but willingness to examine evidence. That's something. Other women receive responses, some believing, some skeptical, some openly hostile. Families fractured by the impossible situation of surviving enemy captivity. The hardest letter comes to Yuki Kimura, 26. She's been silent since Saipan. PTSD from witnessing atrocities at Tarawa. Barely eating, barely speaking. Her letter says her brother was killed at Iwo Jima. Marines. Her family blames her for surviving while he died. You should have died with honor instead of living with shame. Yuki reads the letter once, walks to the fence, stares at nothing. Sachiko finds her an hour later, still staring, letter crumpled in her fist. They want me dead, Yuki says flatly. They're grieving. They want me dead, she repeats. My brother died honorably. I lived dishonorably. I am shame made flesh. Sachiko doesn't know what to say, because Yuki is right. Japanese culture values death over surrender. Yuki's survival is seen as moral failure. No amount of explaining Geneva Convention compliance will change that. Your brother believed propaganda, Sachiko tries. He thought Americans were demons. He died believing lies. You survived and learned truth. That matters. Truth doesn't matter if no one believes it. Someday they will, when the evidence accumulates, when enough people speak, when the Red Cross reports are published and historians examine the records. Sachiko pulls out her file of documentation. We have proof, 47 of us, all telling the same story and all with the same evidence. They can't dismiss all of us forever. Yuki looks at the papers, at the consent forms, at the photographs, at the mountain of documentation that should be undeniable but somehow isn't enough. I don't want to go home, she whispers. Then don't. Not yet. America is offering work programs for medical staff after repatriation. We can delay. Stay here where we're safe. Go back when Japan is ready to hear truth. Will Japan ever be ready? Sachiko doesn't answer, because she doesn't know. August arrives with news that changes everything. Atomic bombs. Hiroshima on the 6th. Nagasaki on the 9th. The Emperor's radio address on the 15th. Surrender. War is over. The camp receives the news at different speeds. American personnel celebrate. Prisoners react with complex emotions. Relief that killing has stopped. Grief that Japan lost. Fear about what comes next. Shame that the Emperor, divine and infallible, admitted defeat. Colonel Patterson addresses all prisoners. Japan has surrendered. Repatriation will begin as soon as transport is arranged. Estimated 3 to 6 months. Until then, same conditions apply. Geneva Convention remains in effect until you are officially repatriated. Questions flood the women's compound. What does surrender mean for prisoners? Will they be punished? Will they be freed? Will they be sent home immediately or hell? Patterson clarifies. You'll be sent home. That's not negotiable. But we need time to arrange transport. Ships are still being used for Allied prisoners in Japan. You'll go when space is available. Then he adds, Some of you may choose to remain in United States temporarily. Work programs available for skilled medical staff teachers, agricultural workers. Voluntary. You can return to Japan anytime. The offer creates division. Go home immediately to destroyed cities and social shame, or stay in America temporarily, delay the inevitable, live in safety a bit longer. 31 women choose immediate repatriation. Must find families, must face shame, must try to rebuild Japan even if Japan rejects them. 13 choose to stay temporarily. Nothing left in Japan, skills needed here. Safety preferable to starvation. Sachiko chooses immediate repatriation. I need to show my father the evidence while it's fresh. Need to prove I wasn't broken. Keiko chooses to stay. My mother told me to stay where I'm fed. I'll go home when Japan can feed me. No judgment between the two groups. Both choices are valid. Both are survival. Over the next 3 months, they wait. The 31 preparing to leave. The 13 preparing to stay. All of them processing the end of war and the beginning of whatever comes next. Morrison visits them before his discharge. He's being sent home. Vermont. Civilian life. Teaching first aid to community volunteers. I wanted to say goodbye, he tells them through the translator, and to give you something. He hands Sachiko a folder. Her complete medical file, every consent form, every temperature chart, every treatment note, Margaret's photographs, Red Cross verifications. This is your proof. 300 pages of documentation. If anyone questions how you were treated, show them this. With this, Sachiko takes the folder, heavy, substantial, undeniable. Why did you do this, she asks. Why treat us so well? Morrison considers the question. Because I watched my brother die in a German camp where they didn't follow protocol. And I decided that if I ever had prisoners under my care, they'd be treated right. Not because it's easy, because it's who we are. Who Americans are, who we're supposed to be. We don't always live up to it, but when we do, it matters. He shakes her hand, formal, professional, then does something unexpected. Pulls out a worn photograph, shows her, a young man in American uniform, smiling, 19 years old. My brother Thomas died December 1944. Bastogne, hypothermia in a German POW camp. Morrison's voice is steady. You survived hypothermia because I followed the protocol that should have saved him. That matters to me. So thank you for surviving. Sachiko stares at the photograph. At this young man who died because enemies didn't follow rules, whose death motivated his brother to follow rules even when those rules protected enemies. The circular tragedy of it overwhelms. Thomas dies from rule breaking. Sachiko lives from rule following. Thomas's death creates Morrison's obsession with protocol. Morrison's protocol saves Sachiko. War creates these impossible loops. Tragedy spawning mercy. Death inspiring life. Loss producing grace. I'm sorry about your brother, Sachiko says. I'm sorry about your fiancé, Morrison replies, and I'm sorry you have to go home to people who won't believe you. But the evidence is there. Someday someone will listen. He leaves them with that, returns to America, to normal life, to teaching first aid in a Vermont community center. Probably never thinks about the 47 Japanese women he saved. Probably considers it just doing his job, following the manual. Nothing special, but to Sachiko, it's everything. It's proof that enemies can be human, that systems can protect the vulnerable, that rules when followed create space for dignity even in war. December arrives, transport ship ready. 31 women board USS Goodhue, converted troop transport, sailing to Tokyo Bay. Journey 12 days. They watch Hawaii recede. 9 months in American custody. 9 months of evidence accumulating. 9 months of learning that everything they were told was propaganda. Now they're going home. To destroyed cities, to suspicious families, to social death for the crime of surviving. Sachiko stands on deck holding her folder of documentation. 300 pages, consent forms, medical records, photographs, pay stubs, letters from Morrison, letters from Margaret, Red Cross verifications, statistical comparisons, proof, mountains of proof, evidence that should be undeniable. But she knows it won't be enough. Not immediately, not for most people. Because belief is stronger than evidence. Because shame is stronger than truth. Because propaganda has roots that documentation can't easily pull. Still, she holds the folder. Because someday someone will listen. Someday historians will examine these records. Someday the truth will matter. They arrive in Tokyo Bay, December 18, 1945. American occupation in full effect. MacArthur is supreme commander. Japanese government operates under Allied supervision. Disembarking is surreal. Japanese officials supervised by American MPs process them. Documentation given to each prisoner, POW record, medical history, conduct report. All 31 women, exemplary conduct, voluntary medical work, no disciplinary issues, recommended for commendation. Commendation for surviving, for working, for being good prisoners. The Japanese officials read these reports with blank faces, skeptical, suspicious, wondering how much is truth and how much is American propaganda. Sachiko takes her papers, adds them to her folder, evidence pile growing heavier. Tokyo is ruins. She knew this from letters, but seeing it overwhelms. 40% of the city destroyed by firebombing. Her childhood home ash. Her university rubble. Her father's workplace gone. She finds him at her aunt's house in Yokohama. He's aged 10 years and 2, gray hair, hollow cheeks, survivor of a war that destroyed everything he knew. Sachiko. Father. They embrace. He's crying, she's crying, but underneath the reunion is tension. Question unasked, but present. What happened to you? Were you broken? Are you lying to protect yourself? She pulls out the folder, hands it to him without words. He reads for 3 hours. Consent forms, medical records, Margaret's photographs, Morrison's documentation, Red Cross verifications, pay stubs, statistical comparisons showing American POW camps versus Japanese POW camps, 300 pages of evidence. When he finishes, his hands shake. This is real. Every word verified by neutral Switzerland. They asked permission before treating you. Every time. Gave me copies. Paid me for work. Followed rules even when rules were inconvenient. Her father stares at the documents, then at her. We were lied to, he says quietly, about everything. Relief floods through Sachiko. Her father believes. Evidence convinced him. Documentation overcame propaganda. But then he adds, don't tell anyone else. They won't believe you. They'll call you traitor. They'll say you collaborated. Keep this evidence hidden until Japan is ready to hear truth. The relief curdles. He believes. But he wants silence. Wants her to hide the truth. Protect herself by perpetuating lies. When will Japan be ready, she asks. I don't know. 10 years, 20, 50. But not now. Not while the shame of surrender is fresh. Not while people need to believe Americans are demons to justify our hatred. Sachiko nods, understands. Japan in 1945 isn't ready for nuance, isn't ready to hear that enemies can be human, isn't ready to face the evidence that their government lied about American treatment while committing atrocities against Allied prisoners. So she hides the folder, puts it away, waits for the right time. Years pass. Sachiko applies for nursing positions rejected, tries hospitals refused, finally hired by Allied Occupation Hospital. American employers trust her documentation. Japanese employers consider her contaminated by enemy contact. The irony is bitter. The only place that will employ her is American-run facility. She works there through the occupation, treats Japanese civilians, trains under American doctors, uses techniques learned at WWII, builds a career on enemy-provided education. In 1952, she's contacted by Dr. Patricia Walsh, American researcher, University of California, Berkeley, studying POW treatment. I'd like to interview you about your experience. Sachiko hesitates. 7 years of silence. Can she break it now? She brings the folder, 300 pages, carefully preserved. Dr. Walsh examines the documentation. This is extraordinary, not because treatment was exceptional, it was mandated by Geneva Convention, but because you preserved evidence. She publishes an academic paper, Treatment of Japanese POWs in American Camps, 1945. A case study. Includes Sachiko's documentation. Photographs, statistics, comparisons. Some Japanese academics dismiss it as propaganda. Some investigate. Some confirm American POW camps really did follow protocol. The slow vindication begins. Not acceptance, but acknowledgement that evidence exists, that the story might be true, that maybe possibly Japanese propaganda lied. In 1958, a letter arrives. From Hawaii, Camp Untold Memorial Dedication. POWs invited to attend. Sachiko is 36 now. Established translator, financially stable, but Hawaii means facing the past. She contacts other women. 8 agree to attend, including Keiko, who married an American GI and lives in California now. November 1958, memorial ceremony, American veterans, Japanese veterans, former POWs, all together, and Morrison, he's 39, gray streaking his hair, teaching first aid in Vermont, still follows protocol, still trains others in Geneva Convention compliance. They see each other across the memorial plaza. Recognition immediate. You look well, Morrison says. I am well because of you. Because of protocol, he corrects. I just followed the manual. You followed it when others might not. That matters. They walk together. 13 years since Saipan. Different world now. Japan rebuilt. Korea fought. Cold War threatening. But this moment, two people who chose humanity in inhumane situation, this is timeless. I heard you work with Allied hospitals, Morrison says. Yes, using techniques you taught me. Did your people understand? Some do. Most don't. But evidence remains. She shows him the folder. Carried across the Pacific again. This saved me multiple times. Job applications, housing, credibility, proof that I survived honorably. Morrison nods. I think about that tent sometimes. Watching you with the bone saw. Knowing you could kill me. I think about it too. Knowing I didn't. Why didn't you? Because you looked at the ceiling instead of at us. That one detail. That's when I knew you weren't performing protocol, you were living it. The memorial is dedicated. Plaque reads Camp Untold 1943 to 1946. In memory of prisoners of war held here. Honoring those who maintained humanity during inhumanity. May their example guide future generations. American veteran speaks, we treated POWs as Geneva Convention required, not perfectly, but honestly. Japanese veteran speaks, some of us were treated with dignity, we remember. Sachiko doesn't speak publicly, still too controversial in Japan, but afterward to Morrison, thank you for making memory worth keeping. The years continue. Sachiko ages. The folder grows more yellowed, more precious. Evidence of a truth that took decades to be heard. In 1997, NHK Television contacts her. Documentary on POW experiences. Will she be interviewed? She's 75 now. White hair, shaking hands. But mind still sharp, memory still clear. The interviewer is young, wasn't born when the war ended. Knows it only through textbooks and documentaries. What do you remember most about American captivity? Sachiko pulls out the consent form. 52 years old, yellow, creased from being folded and unfolded thousands of times, but intact. She reads it aloud to the camera. Hypothermia treatment protocol. Patient consent required. May refuse at any time. Alternative blanket protocol available upon request. This is proof, she says. Proof I was given choice when I expected none. Proof my enemies saw me as human before my own country did. The interviewer asks, did you ever regret cooperating with Americans? Sachiko's voice is sharp. I didn't cooperate. I survived. I accepted medical treatment that saved my life. That's not collaboration. That's survival. She pulls out the complete folder, lays 300 pages on the table between them. My enemy fed me bacon while my own country starved its soldiers. My enemy asked permission before touching me while my officers told me to commit suicide rather than be captured. My enemy gave me copies of every document while my country destroyed records. She holds up the consent form close to camera. 5 words lay your head on my chest. I heard assault. They meant survival. The measuring tape they used measured body temperature, not dignity. I lived because someone chose to see me as human. And I kept this evidence for 52 years because someday someone would be ready to hear the truth. She looks directly at the camera, at the millions of Japanese citizens who will watch this broadcast. Protocol isn't weakness, it's civilization. America followed rules when rules protected enemies. That's what made them different. That's what made them America. The documentary airs December 1997. 1 hour, prime time, responses mixed. Some viewers call it propaganda, others call it revelation. Veterans on both sides offer testimonies. Younger generation ask questions about why rules matter. Sachiko receives thousands of letters. From other POWs thanking her for speaking. From American veterans thanking her for acknowledging what they tried to do right. From historians requesting access to her documentation. From students wanting to understand how war works when humanity survives. She donates everything to National Archives in 2003, just before she dies at 81. Natural causes, surrounded by family. 300 pages of documentation. Consent forms from 47 women. Medical records. Morrison's notes. Margaret's photographs. 52 years of correspondence tracking lives. Her will specifies, make it public record, let historians use it, let students learn from it, let future generations see that even in war, humanity is possible when people choose to follow rules. Morrison dies 2 years later at 86 Vermont, surrounded by students he trained as EMTs. His obituary, dedicated to emergency medical care and POW protocols 1945 to 1946, taught generations that protocol exists to protect both patient and provider. Doesn't mention saving 47 lives specifically, just says, he followed rules when it mattered. Today, the consent form sits framed in National Archives, Tokyo and Washington, D.C., yellow paper, Japanese left, English right, patient consent required, may refuse at any time. The plaque beneath reads, this consent form represents choice given when choice was rare. It proves even in war, humanity is possible. 47 women expected demons. They found humans following protocol. This is not story of American goodness versus Japanese evil. This is story of systems that protect vulnerable from powerful, and individuals who chose to honor those systems. In the end, what survives isn't the war. What survives is the choice made by a medic from Vermont to look at the ceiling. The choice made by a translator to steady his shaking hands and see people instead of enemies. The choice made by a nurse to set down a bone saw and hold a dying girl instead. The choice to follow rules even when rules protect enemies, even when rules are inconvenient, even when no one would know if you broke them. That's what the consent form proves. Not that Americans were saints, but that Americans wrote down how to treat prisoners humanely in 1929 and then actually followed those words in 1945. 47 women, 100% survival rate, 0 assaults, complete documentation. Because one medic read the manual and decided to follow every word. Because one translator chose forgiveness over hate. Because one Red Cross observer documented everything. Because America, imperfect and complicated, America created a system that protected prisoners through law rather than depending on individual kindness. The bacon that broke the propaganda wasn't magic. It was just breakfast. Standard military ration. But it was enough to show that abundance was real, that enemies could be fed, that cruelty wasn't inevitable. The baseball that confused them wasn't profound. It was just a game, American sport. But it was enough to show that even in war people play, that getting home safe is the point, that rules exist to protect everyone. The consent form that saved them wasn't revolutionary. It was just paperwork. International law implemented. But it was enough to show that choices matter, that dignity can survive, that humanity is possible even when everything says it shouldn't be. Sachiko Tanaka kept that paper for 52 years because it proved something her enemy gave her that her own country didn't. Choice, dignity. The acknowledgement that even in defeat, even in captivity, even in the absolute powerlessness of being a prisoner of war, she was still human. And humans get to choose. Even when the choice is just yes or no to medical treatment, even when the choice seems meaningless in the grand scope of war, The bone saw sits in a museum now. Army medical equipment, World War II era, surgical steel, still sharp enough to cut. But it never cut because Sachiko chose trust, because Morrison chose protocol, because in that tent on Saipan in February 1945, humanity chose itself. 47 women, 100% survival rate, 0 assaults, complete documentation, not because Americans were saints, because they wrote down rules in 1929 and followed them in 1945. The consent form survived 52 years because it proves something impossible, that enemies can choose to see each other as human. That rules, when followed, create space for dignity even in war. 5 words, lay your head on my chest. She heard assault. They meant survival. The bacon wasn't magic, just breakfast. The baseball wasn't profound, just a game. The consent form wasn't revolutionary, just paperwork. But together they broke propaganda, showed that abundance exists, that even in war people play, that choices matter. Sachiko Tanaka kept that yellowed paper because it proved her enemy gave her something her own country didn't. Choice, dignity, humanity. And that matters. 52 years later, 75 years later, forever later. Get home safe. All of us, even the enemies, especially the enemies, because that's what rules are for.